And we'll start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Community Services Committee meeting for April 27th, 2021. The voting members on this committee here this morning are myself and Mayor Clayton. And to start, we've got a delegation from the Center for Creative Arts. So that's you, Ms. Hook. I think you know the drill, but for those watching at home, you get about 5 minutes to present, and then we get a chance to ask you any questions we might have. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see you all, even though it's virtual. It's great to see some smiling faces. I can't believe I have to do this in 5 minutes today, so I'm going to kind of dive right into it. It's usually very typical, our report, just a little bit of growth and a little bit of building and getting a little bit better every year. But this past year has really been a roller coaster ride for us at the Center for Creative Arts. So as you know, we service our community through community-driven artistic and craft programming. So we hire local instructors, local artists, and give them opportunities to exhibit their work and to share their work to help others in our community grow their artistic knowledge. And we've done some of the same this year, but it's really been a different one for us. So we started 2020 with a full complement of programs. We actually were on track with higher registration numbers than we had ever seen in the past. So it was a very encouraging start to the year. And then, as you all know, last March, everything changed for us. And all of a sudden, those very encouraging starts became a whole lot of question marks out there in the community. Our team did a really good job of keeping in touch with all of our students, maintaining communication. There was a lot of changing circumstances at the beginning of the year, but we were able to either postpone, alternatively deliver, or refund all of our students for the classes that they were registered for going into the pandemic. And we were really, it lifted our spirits to see how many students just wanted to keep that credit on file and come back to us when they were ready to take our programs in person again, which was very helpful for us financially, and also just a good nod that we were headed in the right direction and people were willing to stay invested with our organization. By summer last year, we were able to sort of tiptoe back into programming. So we started out with our summer camps last year because there was a big demand for that. But as you know, last year in the summer, everything was very new. We were wading through a lot of new restrictions and regulations and best practices to the best of our ability. So in the previous year, in 2019, we had over 200 students for summer camp. Last year, we had 32. So we reduced it down to 4 weeks, limited it to 8 students at a time. But it was a really good chance for us to learn and to communicate with families and find out what works. In the summer, we also started rolling out our Healing Arts program again, which provides programming to, I see Chris there, Happy's a great one. I could go on about the Healing Arts program all day, but I think I need another meeting for that. But we started delivering those programs again. And we started with those two because they were both, they're both run by staff members at the center, and they're very supervised, and it was a really safe way for us to find out what's going to work for us. And by fall, we were rolling again with a full complement of our programming. We had to make some adjustments. We're very thankful to have the large space on the 3rd floor, which prior to now was utilized more for like meetings and events, but we were able to use that large space for a lot of our in-person programming so we can space everyone out. Come December, we were unfortunately shut down again, but we were able to have a few weeks of our Christmas sale before that, which allowed us to get some money in the artists' pockets before the end of the year, and also make some sales out of our gift shop and gallery, which is great for us. So the whole year was an exercise of doing what we can as safely as we can when we were able to do so. And we actually, I feel, came out of the year with a few more tools in our kit. So we were able to adapt some of our programming to deliver them either distance or online. So we came up with 20 at-home art lessons throughout the year that were available with like step-by-step directions through our social media pages or on our website. And we did hundreds and hundreds of at-home art kits, especially for our students that were already in the system and for our healing arts students. The Healing Arts program was great because we work with partners throughout the community, different social service agencies that were able to help us distribute those kits and those supplies and get people onboarded in the meantime. And so I think going into 2021, even though we're anticipating it to still be a very challenging year, we worked out some of the kinks, and we know that we've been able to grow and deliver things in different ways. So we're hopeful that we can keep doing that and hopefully eventually rolling back more into in-person programming. But in the meantime, we found some things that work for us to keep the community creating. And 2020, we still managed to finish up some facility-related projects that we're already committed to. So we finished our pottery studio renovations. We made some improvements to our gift shop. Both of those were funded through donations or lottery funding. So it wasn't a commitment from the City of Grande Prairie, but it definitely made a huge impact to the city facility. Our pottery studio is looking amazing. And we revamped our website. So if you haven't checked that out yet, it's creativecenter.ca. Over 2020, we completely redid our website, and we now have this great artist directory that's going to be sort of one-stop shop if you're opening up a business in Grande Prairie and you want to decorate with local artists. We're just starting to populate that directory now, but artists can buy in for a low cost, and it'll be a great way to feature our regional artists. So we have some new exciting projects on the go as well. And with that, we're always very thankful for the city's support. Over the last year, we were really diligent in cutting expenses where we could and applying to available provincial and federal COVID relief benefits where we can. We actually managed to come out of 2020 just barely in the black, but in the black, and put some savings in the account for what we're anticipating is going to be another difficult year. But one thing that really helped us get through was that continued support from the City of Grande Prairie, despite the turbulent cultural industry over the last year. It really means we need to work with our funders more than ever, and we appreciate you guys having our back through the year.
Well, thank you for the work the center's doing, and thanks for catching us up today. We really appreciate it. I'll just turn to the committee and see if anybody's got any questions. Councillor O'Toole. Oh, sorry, Councillor O'Toole, you're muted.
Thank you. No questions, just comments. Thank you, Candace, for the work that you do and the programs that you run. I know a number of people that go there, and when they leave, they feel like something's changed. They feel a positive message when they're done. So they go in there not feeling good. Did they come back? They feeling really happy. So just giving you some votes of confidence here that there's lots of people that really do appreciate that facility and the staff.
Thanks. That really hits for what we aim for, is that positive sense of accomplishment that people get when they come in, they try something new, and we do everything we can to make sure that they're successful, or at the very least happy with the new experience. So thank you very much. I appreciate hearing that.
Well, I know that we've got a hideous papier-mâché multicolored rainbow pig that a 5-year-old created a Center of Creative Arts program that's very prominently displayed in our house. So I know from personal experience you're giving people some great sense of accomplishment. Councillor Friesen.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. That just reminds me of a couple of mugs that Doug and I have, and he can barely lift his, and mine is so lopsided that you can only fill it half before the coffee starts trickling out one side. But we had a blast making those at the Center for Creative Arts pre-COVID.
Great. Well, thank you, Ms. Hook. We really do appreciate the work you do in our community all year, and we appreciate you giving us some time today to hear a little bit more about it. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And with that, I will move on to item 3.1, which is the Grande Prairie High Performance Sports Center business case, and that is Ms. Cajolas.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Administration was directed to work with the applicants of the Grande Prairie High Performance Sports Center proposal to bring forward a business case for council consideration. The business case and administrative report outline the operating model of the proposed sport facility. Private investors will own the land and the facility and charge rent to the charity that will operate the facility. Administration notes that operating revenues and expenses appear to be reasonably estimated by the applicants, and that the staffing model will be finalized based on the confirmed operations of the facility. Once funding is secured, the applicants will determine the detailed scope for the project, which will be used to tender the construction project and confirm the total project costs. Overall, the applicants have requested municipal support of $4.5 million in capital investment and $400,000 in annual operating costs. It is estimated it will be open for approximately 6 months in 2022. Therefore, the operating subsidy is estimated to be only $200,000 in year 1. Administration recognizes that the project proposal has regional merit and certainly appreciates the time and effort that the applicants have invested in this project to date and in working with administration. A formal needs analysis or feasibility study has not been completed for this project concept. As a sole municipal funder, the annual financial commitment from the City of Grande Prairie is significant, and there would be an ongoing impact to the tax base. Given that the municipality will not own the land, a grant funding agreement with the private investors is certainly recommended if Council were to proceed with funding this proposal. Administration recommends that Council receive the Grande Prairie High Performance Sports Center business case for information. And administration would certainly be interested in working with the applicants and our community partners to develop any high performance services utilizing our current existing city facilities. And with that, I'm open to any questions.
Great, thank you for the report. Are there any questions?
Chair Bressie, it's Mayor Clayton here. Can you see me?
No, we cannot see you. We just got a black screen.
Okay, so my camera is on and I can see you, but you can't see me. So if I have a question until this sort of resyncs, I'll just raise my hand in the chat box.
Sure, sounds good.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Jolas? Well, Mayor Clayton, I'm not seeing any questions. Sure. I'm wondering if you're willing to make a motion.
Sure, absolutely. I did just want to share, some thoughts on this. I believe that I really appreciate the work the administration put into this, as well as those involved at the regional rec level. We had, very good discussions regionally on this. I appreciate the time and the effort that administration put in it, as well as working with the applicant and the group that has the passion for this project. I think that our region is at a level and a volume and a stage in sport where we could utilize a facility like this. I just don't know if it's right now. However, that being said, I think this is more of a discussion for than just 2 councillors at a committee level. Unfortunately, 2 other councillors weren't able to be here. So I would like to move this discussion further and move it on to council for further consideration and a more full council discussion. So I would move that committee direct administration to bring this report to council for further consideration and discussion.
Great. Yeah, and I know, not seeing anybody else popping up to speak, I know I'd certainly agree with you that I really do appreciate the work that went here. I think there's conversation worth having about a sports center in our region. This one I'm very uneasy about being the only municipality participating in, and with such a high ask, so I don't know if I could support this at this time, but I agree that this probably would be a better council conversation than just the 2 of us at this committee deciding. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I agree. I think this would be a great facility to have in Grande Prairie, but not at this time. I think we got too many other issues to deal with before we spend that kind of money. But yeah, I'm very supportive of it. But maybe in the next term, if everything goes well, that we can maybe do this. But right now, we got just too much on the plate right now to look into this. My opinion.
So is there any other discussion on the motion to refer this to council? In that case, I will call that to vote. And that motion carries.
Chair Bressie, it's Mayor Clayton here. Sorry, it appears that when I put my hand up, you're not seeing that either. So I'm just going to sign off for a second and sign back on.
Sure, and just because we lose quorum as you do that, I'm just going to pause the meeting as you do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We can see you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So then the next item 3.2 is grant recommendations, and that's Ms. Bieberdorf.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Bressie. The Community Advisory Committee met on April 8th, and we discussed the Pursuit of Excellence funding and arts development individual projects and festival funding. All grants being recommended by administration today were endorsed by the committee at this meeting. The first one is the Arts Development Festival funding. We received one application for this stream of funding from the Bear Creek Folk Festival Society, and they are looking to host an Unfestival, free community event, and that will be held down at the amphitheater in Muskosipi Park. The applicant was eligible for funding for this one because we deferred the large-scale tourism grant they received in 2021 to 2022. And the recommended funding request for this grant is $14,000. We also received 3 applications for arts development, individual projects, and scholarships in the amount of $1,400 each, and all 3 were recommended. Pursuit of Excellence funding, we received 2 clinic applications, and both were recommended for $1,000 each. And lastly, we had 3 applications from coaches and 1 for a volunteer official for a total of $1,560.50, and administration recommends approval of grant funding in the amounts outlined in the report, totaling $1,760.50 for Pursuit of Excellence and $16,200 in arts development funding.
Excellent. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. Question for Director Miller. You know, as this is the first sort of exercise of with the new formation of this committee and the recommendations financially, or at least the first one I recall. Anyways, I'm curious going forward if this will be the format. And the only reason I ask that is when there's elected officials on the committee, if I wanted to go know more about a specific funding line, I could ask a fellow councillor. I don't know if it's, you know, I think it's probably too time consuming for, you know, me to ask Ms. Bieberdorf, oh, what is this coaching about? What is this coaching about? So I'm curious about the format of the report. If at all possible, could even have 2 lines about each sort of applicant or each sort of funding amount. And just only because without having elected officials there, I don't want to be bugging Ms. Bieberdorf after I read the report. Oh, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. So if it seemed appropriate, I wondered if next time the report could just have a bit more information on the applications or the awards as they are.
All right. Yes, through the chair, I'll maybe make a quick comment, and then I see Stephanie's chimed in as well. But I just wanted to remind council and committee that this is a bit of a pilot. We're just feeling out the best way to approach it, and good comments, good feedback. That if we could incorporate a couple lines, we want to provide the information that committee's after for sure. So I'll see what else Stephanie would like to add.
Thank you, Director Miller. Through the chair, yes, absolutely, we can adjust the reporting format going forward. Thanks for that feedback.
Thanks very much. With that, I guess if no one else has questions, Chair Bressie, I would committee recommend council to approve the funding allocations as listed.
Great, thank you. Yeah, definitely in support of the motion. Just one idea for the other conversation that was there is, I know in the past process, the Arts Development Committee was, I've never been on the Arts Development Committee, but I always would read the minutes. And I think the agenda package got posted too. And since I wasn't on, I wanted to give it a deep read, but I'd always skim those. And maybe that's the way to keep council on the loop, is to make sure we just get circulated on agendas and minutes. I think there's a few ways to keep us in the loop, but I definitely agree with Mayor Clayton that in the future, I appreciate it's a pilot, but for the next round, I think it would be great to have a bit more information just so that we can have confidence in what we're voting on. Any conversation on the motion? Great, then I will call this to question. Oh yeah, Mayor Clayton, sorry.
I just wanted to speak to the motion for 1 sec. Yeah. You know, I really, so far I'm liking this new format. I'm a big advocate for coach funding. I think it's great to see Pursuit Excellence funding so many coaches. It's definitely a way for our athletes and to be stronger in the region for our coaches, through our coaches. I really like the sort of items that are funded here. So thank you to the committee and administration for the work that they've done. And so far, I think that what I'm seeing, that this new structure is working very well. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Great. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Mayor Clayton anymore. I really appreciate the money going towards officials as well as coaching. In the roundabout way, it saves a lot of time and money for the local people to get trained locally, rather than having to travel to Edmonton or Calgary to receive their coaching or official training. So this is good. And as a member of the Pursuit of Excellence for a number of years, this was a number one choice. We seem to always want to fund the officials, because without them, there is no sports. And without the coaching, there is no sports. So with that said, there was a lot of athletes that we supported, and we actually have a past athlete, Alex Martinez, that's in the United States right now, fighting in competition. And if he's successful, well, he'll be a very rich man in a very short time. Thank you.
Great. Any other discussion on the motion? Great, then I will call it to question. And that motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Bieberdorf, for your work on that, and thank you to the committee for their work on it as well. And that brings us to item 3.3, which is the Activity Reception Center, and that's Ms. Cajolas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the Activity and Reception Center project. The contractor is currently on site in Grande Prairie, and they are preparing the ground for construction, and the pre-engineered building is expected to arrive a little bit later in May. So that's certainly very exciting. I'll just dive right into the report. From February 17th to March 3rd, residents were invited to complete a short survey and share their feedback regarding potential activity offerings at the new Activity and Reception Center. 106 responses were received as part of that public engagement survey. Administration also targeted stakeholder groups and offered 2 engagement sessions as part of the engagement process. From the survey results, the top 5 activities highlighted from that survey were indoor tennis, a climbing wall, volleyball, pickleball, and archery. Various other activities were also suggested, such as badminton and indoor walking track, basketball, and table tennis, to name just a few. The majority of responses from the survey also identified evening hours from 6 to 10 p.m. as their preferred time to use the facility. Administration reviewed several recreation facilities that utilize a variety of operating models and recommends that the staffing model for the new facility should be based on bookings and billed at a cost recovery rate similar to the operation of the leisure center. This model also anticipates that facility operations will be subsidized by the city, similar to our other recreation facilities. A detailed operating budget, facility fees, and capital budget for equipment and furnishings will be submitted as part of the 2022 budget process. The allocation of funds recently approved by Council is intended to fund the site servicing costs for this project and development of the second floor. Development of the space would facilitate additional programming opportunities, rental opportunities, and could certainly be an asset when the building is used for a reception center. So administration is seeking direction on whether or not to proceed with development of the second floor ancillary space as part of the initial design and build for the project. It is anticipated that the city will offer recreational programming and day camps at this location, collaborating with our community partners to provide services. Administration recommends that Council approve the opening of the activity and reception center as a city-operated facility until 2024, and at that time it would, would certainly be worthwhile reassessing the model to see if it meets the needs of the organization, the community, and residents. And with that, I am open to any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Just before I go to anybody else, just a process question. So it sounds to me the recommended motion in the package is approve the opening as a city-operated facility. But if I'm hearing correctly, you're hearing for another motion in regards to the mezzanine area as well, which Council's already allocated the funds for that, if I'm understanding right. But you're hoping just for explicit direction from Council to go ahead with the development of that area?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is correct. That the allocation of those funds was just approved in the recent weeks. So administration is seeking direction in that regard.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, I've been over to that facility location quite a bit this last little while and seen the work being done, and I'm excited. I can't vote on this at this time, but I would definitely go ahead with a mezzanine that would have some offices and at least one meeting room that would hold about 20 people. So that's my 2 cents. I don't think there's a need for a bathroom up there. If there is room or there's able to, that would be a good thing, I guess. But I'm more interested in having some offices that are a decent size and a meeting room that would hold a number of people. So if there was a meeting that a great number could attend.
I don't see anybody else jumping in. So the question I had was, in terms of it being a city-operated facility, first of all, I really appreciate the engagement that's happened so far. I appreciate we had a survey. I appreciate we talked to the public. Something I noticed that's not highlighted in the report, but I know happened was we also engaged with families of kids with sensory issues. And so I really appreciate that there's been a lot of thought put into how do we make sure this is good for all residents of the city. So really appreciate the engagement so far. Has there been thinking yet about what engagement looks like after the facility opens to make sure that we've got an iterative process going on to make sure that it's developing in the best operating model possible? How are we going to continue to engage groups and residents after it's opened?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A formal process for that has not yet been established, but the department, Sports Development, Wellness and Culture Department, would typically work with their community partners in providing services and those sort of things, but we could certainly develop a formal engagement survey strategy or something like that after the facility is open.
And I know for me personally, I don't know what others' thoughts are, but I'd love us to have a plan for what engagement and continuous evaluation looks like after it opens. Because for me, I think the hope that I've heard from other councillors is that this turns into a model of maybe there's 1 or 2 or 3 other facilities like this in the city in the future. And I really want to get this right. And as it opens and as we're in those first years of operations where a lot of momentum has the ability to seek in, I'd love us to put a little bit of thought of what are the council checkpoints going to be? What are the community checkpoints going to be how do we make sure that this facility is everything it can be? And when 2024 clicks around, we've got a good decision-making process of, is it going to continue to be a city-operated facility or is another operating model? So I hope that if we're going to approve this to be a city-operated facility, we're putting some council thought into what's engagement look like after it's opened. Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, just a question. The main floor where people come in, what's going to be proposed on that main floor in the office area? Is there going to be an office there or washrooms, or can you give me a little bit of insight, please?
For sure. Mr. Chair. So the main floor, as the plans are being developed currently, would consist of obviously the activity center and change rooms for that include washrooms, meeting room, also a sort of reception area so that people could come in, ask questions, register if it was a program. There would also be the potential for a staff office, a small kitchen space, washroom facilities, and then all of the mechanical requirements that are required for the building. So mechanical room, janitorial room, those sort of things, and then storage for equipment and supplies.
Perfect. The reason I'm asking is I am on the accessibility committee here in Grande Prairie, and I was just wondering if everything would be handicap accessible or something similar to that. Would it meet any codes for handicap accessibility?
Yeah, absolutely. Through the chair. That is a requirement for new builds, and we have also received some great feedback from the Community Advisory Committee with that regard. So we're confident that there will also be a lift in the building so that if and when the second floor is developed, that is also accessible by people with.
Oh, I'm just happy inside right now. Thank you.
Mayor Clayton.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Chair Bressy. I'm just looking through the report for something before I ask the question. Ms. Casually, can you tell me, I don't see in the report, is there a neighborhood association adjacent to the property or in general area of the property? An active neighborhood association, I guess, is a better question.
Through the chair, there isn't a neighborhood association directly in that area, but when we did the engagement, we certainly did invite neighborhood associations to attend that opportunity.
So where I'm going at with that, I don't think an advisory committee is necessarily needed for this facility, but in the beginning, it would be great if the neighborhood association could be, consulted with on a regular basis. In my opinion, part of this facility would be engaging youth in the area and in some regard for activity after school, and to know how that's working once it's being operational is, in my opinion, best heard from the people in the area. So if, there's consideration given for consultation in the neighborhood, especially in the first, 18 months as programming, et cetera, starts rolling out, and you've done a full year of different types of programming, it would, in my opinion, it would be nice to know how it's working in regards to the youth and the after-school use, et cetera. I know the survey did say that generally evenings was better, but I think depending on the activity, there could be some drop-in type activities after school as well that would be really well utilized. So I think this report sets us on the right path. I really appreciate the consultation that's happened to date. And I look forward to, seeing it in execution and operation and how things actually roll out, because the sports that are indicated and the activities will be a great addition to our already existing facilities. So I'm really excited to see this come to fruition.
Director Miller.
Thanks, Chair Bressy. Just back to Councillor O'Toole's comments about the second floor. We did have a bit of a tentative plan on what, if it is approved, what we would build up there. And maybe I could just ask Stephanie to walk through what we intended on putting up there, and also what needs we think it would meet for us for programming and GPREP as well, perhaps.
That'd be great.
Thank you, through the chair. The second floor development, as it's currently sits would contain a couple of offices. It would also contain washroom facilities and a small kitchenette type of space so that if there were staff working upstairs, they could prepare meals. There's also scheduled to be a storage room upstairs and then a large open space so that could be utilized for in various ways going forward. So it could be a large open space currently utilized for programming opportunities or anything related to, sort of group activities in the event that the facility is being used as a reception center, but it is also large enough that it could be subdivided later once we have an idea of what the needs of the facility are to make it into smaller rooms or maybe even put a dividable, like a movable dividable partition wall in there. So definitely exploring the opportunities that could be used in that space.
Excellent.
Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. In regards to the second floor, Ms. Casualty, I know you're not a construction consultant, but any chance that you know what it would look like in regards to costing if we were to add the second floor down the road?
Thank you, through the chair. So the options for pricing for the fully developing the second floor space. So, that includes all of the mechanical pieces right through to complete fixtures. The cost of that as part of this project build is about $276,000. And if it was delayed to a later state, I anticipate that the cost would be approximately the same. We may be able to explore some options for using local contractors. I don't know if that would have an impact on the total price, but it certainly could.
So just to clarify, we have $400,000 allocated. You're expecting that it'll come in approximately $276,000, and there's no expected cost increase if we were to do this down the road. Sorry, you're muted, Ms. Catlin.
Through the chair, no, we haven't been advised of any additional costs.
Thank you.
Depend on the cost of materials and things at that time. So sure. I mean, there is fluctuation, but it could certainly be looked at a later time.
So, Chair Bressie, I think if you don't have anyone else, I have a couple of sort of motions that I'd be willing to go with.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody else, so please go ahead with some motions.
So the first one being that I move that committee recommend council approve the opening of the activity and reception center as a city-operated facility until 2024. That being said, personally, I'd always seen this facility being a community-run facility, but I do think for the first few years that while this facility gets operational, we see the best utilization of different activities and stuff, that the city would be the best operator in the beginning. So I encourage you, Councillor Bressie, to support this motion.
Yeah, not seeing anybody jumping in. I certainly do support this motion. I think that I'm not aware. I've tried to tickle them out. I'm not aware of any partners in the city that are ready to take it over right now. So I'd love to get to a place where it's operated by a partner. But I think right now it definitely makes sense for this. Just talk about city operated. I'm looking for it. It'll be for the next council to decide the budget of it. And I don't think any direction needs to be given by council right now on that. But just some maybe advice from administration. I hope that when the next council does consider price, there's a few options given there. I think that there's how affordable do we want this to be for residents, and how affordable do we want this to be for taxpayers are two very different conversations. And I think I suspect that there's a good chance council will want to have be set up for a fairly robust conversation about the balance between tax funding and revenue funding for this. So as we're preparing to operate today, I just hope that there's some ranges and some options that are given to council as we operate it. But I definitely think it makes sense to operate as a city facility to begin with. Any other conversation on this motion, which would just be recommending to council? Councillor O'Toole.
No argument from me from what was said. I truly think that we need to see where we're going to go with this and how we're going to function and the programs that we're going to offer. and then turn it over if that's something that's desired by the next council.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other conversation, so I'll call this motion to question. And that motion carries. And Mayor Clay, you said that you might have a couple.
Sure, yeah, you bet. I'm just looking for, I'll just make it simple. So I would move the committee direct administration to bring a report forward for discussion on the second floor mezzanine for further consideration. Just
a question for administration on this. What are we looking like in terms of timelines on having to make a decision point on that mezzanine to get it done at the same time as the building?
Thank you, through the chair. Certainly the contractor would look for an answer as soon as possible, but definitely required by the end of June.
Okay. And with this are there any concerns if this motion passed? Would there be any concerns from administration having adequate time to prepare a report in time for council to make a decision?
Thank you, through the chair. We have some pricing options already prepared that have been identified, so I don't anticipate that there is. If there are any specific questions that council has in relation to the development of that space, then certainly that would be helpful for administration to be able to prepare for.
Great. Mayor Clayton, I'm kind of curious, what are you hoping is in that report?
And also in the motion, just to the clerk, I just want to see that the report brought forward to council for consideration. It's just missing that in the motion. I don't expect to see any additional information. I just think that this is a full council discussion rather than just yourself and I, Councillor Bressie. Sure.
So just give me a.
I don't think I need to see anything additional. I know that some people have a lot of interest in this. Personally, I think that this could wait, so that it has a further discussion. I just think it should go to council.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of curious. Sorry, I'm having to reload eScribe, so I don't see your motion in front of.
Well, right now, the committee direct administration to bring what I could do, Councillor Bressie, to the clerk to bring this report forward to council for discussion on the second floor mezzanine space.
Great. And is there any reason that conversation can be brought to the next council sure. meeting?
Yep. To the next council meeting for discussion. Yeah, you bet.
Great. So with the slight change, I've got eScribe open now. So changing, instead of bring a report, bring this report forward.
You bet.
Great.
No additional work required. I just don't think that you and I should be deciding the fate of this floor.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So I definitely support this motion. Any other conversation about this? Great. In that case, I will call this to question. And that motion carries. Is there any further business regarding the activity center? Great. Well, thank you, Ms. Cajolet, for your work on this. We really appreciate you. I know that this has been a lot of work for your department, so it's much appreciated by council getting this done. And that brings us to item 3.4, Director Service Area Report with Director Miller.
Great. Thanks, Chair Bressie. So I'll be fairly brief. So in regards to the Community Knowledge Campus, registration has started for outdoor fitness offerings in May and June as well. The Aquafit one-on-one sessions will be starting up on May 4th. The next set of private swimming lessons for May and June are quickly filling up. And the outdoor pool, we're anticipating opening it up on the May long weekend, but of course it's weather dependent. And but hopefully we have good weather and we can enjoy it then. It'll at this point, I think, based on the restrictions, it'll be open for private bookings only. But we'll certainly do what we can to allow as many as possible to enjoy it. And then with events and entertainment, vaccination sites running very smoothly. To date, it's over 7,100 immunizations have taken place at that site. And then with facilities department, they're busy dewinterizing and prepping the outdoor pool for the spring startup. And the park's Revy Yard shop project has been awarded now. And they're also finalizing dashboard monitoring, display information, and graphics. And then for fleet, some good news. The first of our 2 cutaway buses, which are ordered for transit and accessible transit, are expected to arrive on April 30th. And then the next 2 should be early May. And then there's 4 more that would follow in the next couple months. For sports development, wellness, and culture, the city collaborated with the Volunteer Services Bureau to celebrate National Volunteer Week, which was April 18th until the 24th. And it's celebrated every year to recognize and thank volunteers for the time and energy they donate for the benefit of our community. And the virtual celebration featured a video series. It was called Volunteer Shoutouts from the community, as well as a scavenger hunt in collaboration with the Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association. And some good news. I think you're probably aware of this, but the city did receive approval for the grant regarding the design and the purchase of the portable skate park equipment. That's and our intent there is to put it into the activity reception center for the winter months. And then the programming team has begun their spring programming with a variety of programs, including the return of our popular Learn to Skate programs. And these programs will run Monday and Saturday and aim to teach children 2 to 6 the fundamentals of skating. And then for transit, hopefully on May 5th, they're going to start the public engagement process for the new transit routing that Mr. Harvard and his team have been working on for the last few months. And that's my update, Mr. Chair, unless there's any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions? I'm not seeing any. Oh, Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressy. I was just waiting to see if anyone else had any. Director Miller, can you tell me, in regards to the mobile skate park, it won't be purchased in time to be utilized this summer?
Through the chair, thanks, Mayor Clayton. So I see Stephanie's here as well, but I believe the RFP should be issued this week. I think the scope of work or the details are prepared, and depending on how long it takes, but maybe Stephanie has additional info.
Thank you, through the chair. To your question, Mayor Clayton, the RFP is being issued this week. So we hope to have that process concluded before the end of June. So it will really just depend on the time frame provision of the material. So fingers crossed, it will certainly be able to be used this summer. That was certainly our goal, but just timing may not work out this year. But it's certainly if we are able to receive the equipment, then it will be utilized in our outdoor spaces.
Great, thank you. Yeah, it would be great to add it to summer activities, especially this summer, considering most activities will be outdoors. So that would be great. I did have another question on your report, Director Miller, but I forget it, so I apologize.
Oh, well, maybe I'll think about it. I was just going to say, hey, Mayor Clayton, let me ask a question about the skate park before you go to another topic. So a question I've got about the skate park, if we do get it in time for the summer, oh, and somebody's at my door. If we do get it in time for the summer, where's the thoughts of a few places it might go? Has that been considered yet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have not established firm schedule, but we have been working with our Parks Department to determine that. So our plan would be to put it in some of our existing outdoor rink areas so that in theory the equipment could be secured. It was definitely one of the concerns addressed by the funder. So we'll continue to work on that and certainly be able to provide an update as we proceed through the process.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on the service area update? Great. In that case, I will go back to Director Miller for the outstanding items list.
Thanks, Chair Bressy. I think there is one item of correspondence on the list.
Oh, yes. My apologies. So we've got the Town of Wembley, the Regional Handy Bus Feasibility Study. And just talked about it, there was a previous decision made by Wembley Council to defer this conversation until the next councils get in. However, there was recently an announcement by the federal government regarding funding for rural transit solutions. And if I'm reading between the lines, there's a possibility that that might not bend to Alberta election cycles. And so there might be an opportunity for funding that can't wait till the next councils to discuss. So there's inquiry if we're interested in tasking our administration to continue exploring the feasibility of using this federal rural funding. Mayor Clayton.
Question for administration. How far down the road have you explored this opportunity? I know that, we have worked with other municipalities in this regard, but where are we at in regards to the work that's been put into this and the consideration, et cetera?
Through the chair, there has been some work put into it already. I know Mr. Harvard has attended several meetings with the county and the other municipalities as well. Most recently with this letter, I think Mr. Harvard spoke with Kathleen Turner from the county and talked more about the possibilities. And the way we see our role in this is we would be the service provider. And if the other municipalities wanted the service provided in the region, then we have the abilities to do that. And it would be at no cost to us, of course. It would be a bit of a revenue generator for us, similar to the county connector bus that was in place in the past. So if council and committee is supportive, we are interested in working with the other municipalities. And we have the expertise to offer the service if they're willing to apply for the grant. And if they're successful, then we'd like to provide the service with the council's approval.
So just to follow up, if I may, I'm curious, do you feel that this warrants a report brought to committee? If committee or council was interested in having, implementing this, what would you recommend as the next steps?
Through the chair, I think, our intent, if committee and council are in support, is we'll respond to the town of Wembley and say we are interested in being at the table. And then it is an outstanding item list on the outstanding items. Right. So I think we could actually remove that. And before we would enter into an agreement to provide this service, we would bring it back to committee and to council for approval. So it could be a few months down the road by the time we get to that point, but we'd certainly bring it back and say, here's a proposal that we're interested in pursuing with council's approval.
So I guess, Director Miller, do you need a motion from council, or are you comfortable with a motion from committee to respond to the correspondence and bring back to the next standing committee for further information, for a further update, or what would you like to see?
Through the chair, I think a motion from committee today would be helpful, and then we'll certainly work with them. And then when it's appropriate, when we have the right information, then we'll bring it back. If it's supported by the other municipalities and a grant is applied for, we'll certainly update either through my director's update, or if we're to the stage where they'd like to enter into an agreement, then we'll bring back a formal report to committee.
Thank you. So then a question for you, Chair Bressie. Are you comfortable supporting a motion in regards to direction to administration, or would you prefer this to go to council for consideration?
I think this is just asking administration to do some work to form future recommendations. I think that's well in the scope of committee to direct. So as long as none of our colleagues have objections to that, I think it's completely appropriate for this just to be a committee direction.
Great. So just before I make the motion, maybe if any of our fellow councillors have any input on this prior to Councillor Bressie and I directing administration, it'd be good to hear from you. Councillor
O'Toole?
Go for it.
I saw a thumbs up and a nod from two other members of council. So.
Okay, perfect. So I would just direct administration to respond to the correspondence and bring back a report to this standing committee for further consideration.
Awesome. Yeah, and just to speak to it, I'm glad that these conversations are starting. I think rural connectivity is good for our entire region. I think that saving on municipal services is good for the whole region. So if the city can offer this as a service rather than an entire separate transit department getting built in a rural area, that's an efficient use of funds. And I think if there's federal funding, this is part of getting a fair deal for Alberta, is taking advantage of every federal funding program we possibly can. And because that money is going to be spent somewhere. That's tax money that our ratepayers are paying regardless. It's going to be spent somewhere. So we should be working to get it spent in our region. So I am fully in support of us continuing this conversation.
Chair Bressie to Administration Clerk, instead of for information, it would be for consideration.
Sure. Great. Any other conversation? And I saw that change just got made. Any other conversation? In that case, I will call this to question. And that motion carries. So now I think we're ready to move on to our outstanding items list with Director Miller.
All right, thanks, Chair Bressie. So I think based on the motion made by Mayor Clayton, 1129, it's still connected to the regional handy bus, and the report date was June, but we won't be able to meet that report date because I'm sure there won't be any too many meetings prior to that. So maybe we'll just extend the expected report date. I think the way it reads, it captures what we'd be doing. So probably, I'll bring back a future date, but probably November-ish, October perhaps. And then 1144, the Grande Prairie Intercultural Association, that's a recent request. And we have the report ready to present on May 11th. And then 1128, we're just waiting to see if there's further discussion from council on bringing forward the $200,000 business case in 2021 versus 2022. So I think within a month that should be resolved as well. So we'll just leave that one there as well.
Excellent. Willing to receive as amended, Councillor Clayton?
Absolutely.
Great. So Councillor Clayton makes that motion. I'll call that to question. And that motion carries. So with that, I'll call this meeting adjourned. And I believe our next one is Protective and Social Services with Councillor O'Toole.
Just ask that we have a 2-minute break in between meetings.
I think, Chair Bressie, I believe the next start time is 10:15.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, okay. So 17-minute break it is.
Awesome. Thank you.